Hello, students, and welcome back to Pod 2. In this pod, we are going to be discussing the Scopes trial. In Pod 1, we discussed the 1920s, or the Roaring Twenties, as some would say. We discussed many changes that took place on the social side of the 1920s. Now, we're going to discuss a certain trial that took place during the 1920s. And students, grab your popcorn because you are in for a ride. During this presentation, we will focus on the Scopes trial, the Scopes monkey trial, as some of them will call it, as well as effective note taking. I will have points where I stop to help you effectively take important notes from this presentation. So right now, I want you to stop here, pause the video, and download the guided notes template. All right, let's begin. The first thing in your notes, you will see certain vocabulary words. At the beginning of the vocabulary words, you will see names of important people. John Scopes. I'm going to highlight this because this is something that you should make sure you write down in your notes. John Scopes was the teacher who was on trial and who the trial is named after. Make sure you write that down. William Jennings Bryan, a politician and anti-evolution activist. And then we have Clarence Darrow, a famous attorney who defended Scopes during this trial. So make sure you write those down. How did the trial come to be? Although the Scopes monkey trial began in 1925, the origin actually began it with Charles in 1859 with Charles Darwin's The Origin of Species. This is extremely important. Make sure you write this down, please. And The Origin of Species pretty much just discuss what how Charles Darwin felt that humans came to be. So I'm going to up here write this. Make sure you write this in your notes. The Origin of Species discussed how humans evolved. All right, that's important. This trial is specifically interesting, I would say, because it actually was started kind of as a publicity stunt, and it was just started to gain knowledge on the Butler Bill. And this is also important because the Butler Bill is the teaching that is stated that teaching evolution was illegal. So making that's important. That's the reason why this trial actually got started, because people wanted to bring notoriety about the Butler Bill and how that they have recently passed a Butler Bill in certain southern states. In 1925, that's important, 1925, a teacher named John Scopes, here we go again, this is where we started at with John Scopes, this is important, was asked by the ACLU. Here's another one of your vocabulary words, the ACLU. So make sure you write this down, the ACLU, which is the American Civil Liberties Union. And he was asked by the ACLU to admit to teaching evolution. This is very interesting because Scopes was not a history teacher at all. So he didn't have a history lesson he was teaching. However, he was a math and physics teacher, and he agreed to, and he said that yes, I did teach evolution to my students. And since the time, like we said, since we know that was recently found to be a misdemeanor because of the Butler Bill, that caused Scopes to have broken the law. So that started the trial. The trial began July 10th, 1925. Make sure you write this down in your notes. It began July 10th, 1925 in Tennessee. That's important. The first day of the trial, the jury heard testimonies from some of the Scopes' former students who he had taught evolution to, and they just pretty much discussed what they learned in the class and the lessons they learned about evolution. And the defense opened by trying to get the jury to see that evolution was valid, that the Butler bill should not have even existed because that evolution was real. And both sides, the judge told both sides they can call expert witnesses to discuss both sides. So both sides, they like that, so they try to get ahead in the trial by using their expert witnesses. Now, class, this is where it's about to get very interesting. So please make sure you're paying attention. Darrow called Brian as a witness, and this was extremely interesting because Brian was on the opposing side and he was the attorney on the opposing side. So he called him as an expert witness in the Bible and on the Bible, and this is important. Darrow called Brian to the stand as an expert witness on the Bible. That's extremely important in this trial. And during his cross-examination on by Brian, Darrow, he kind of cornered him. He kind of made Brian stumble up on the things that he was saying, because Brian started out by saying that everything in the Bible should be taken literally, and that's just what it is. The Bible states that that's what it is. However, Darrow made Brian go back on his word and pretty much say that Brian pretty much said that he didn't really know. He didn't know. And that's important because with the cross-examination, he just said that I really don't know. I do not know. So let's see. He did not effectively understand science because the Bible does not provide all of the answers. So he didn't really understand the science of the Bible because the Bible really didn't speak about a lot of the science side. And so at that point, Darrow felt like, okay, we are ahead because we have their start turning corner, and now we're getting somewhere. The jury can't help but vote for our side and go for us. However, after the cross-examination, the judge stated that Brian's testimony should be taken from the records, meaning that the jury can't even consider it in making their decision, and that's important. I'm going to highlight that. After the cross-examination, the judge stated that Brian's testimony should be taken from the record. So at that point, the jury can't even use Brian's testimony as part of their deliberation process. And this was a setback for Darrow. So he just said that Scopes should be found guilty. And that's also kind of crazy because you don't find too many lawyers saying that, yeah, my client should be found guilty. So that's pretty much what he said. He should be found guilty. But the reason he did this was because he did not want Brian to make a closing argument. Because remember, we're at the point where he had just cornered Brian on the witness stand. However, Brian's entire testimony was taken from the records. So at that point, it's like Darrow kind of had no leverage anymore. He really had no leverage anymore. And he knew that Brian could use this against him. So when he just stated that, you know what, let's just say that Scopes is guilty. We're just going to say that we're not going to say that he's not guilty anymore. We're going to say that he's guilty and the trial just should end. So he did that. So the jury could not hear Brian's closing arguments. So with that point, the trial was over, and since Scopes said that he was guilty and said that he did it, he was fined $100. He was fined $100, and that's pretty much how the trial ended. The trial lasted for 1 week, and that it was like a very crazy, weird trial in the 1920s. However, it gained so much notoriety all over the country that it was just mind-boggling to many. So with the trial having an abrupt and unusual ending, both sides kind of felt they won because Brian felt his side won because he was like, you know what, you said you were guilty. That's all we were trying to prove. You said you were guilty. We wanted to prove that. That's that. And Darrow said he won because it's like you really had no valid reasonings on the opposing side. He felt the opposing side had really no valid reasons, so they felt that their side won. Later on in that same year, Mississippi also passed a law that teaching evolution was illegal, as did Texas in 1925. So then you had more southern states join in to state that teaching evolution was illegal. And this is crazy to me because it's like this conversation is still going on today. The conversation is still being a very prominent conversation in our society today, stating whether or not that evolution should be taught in schools. Should we teach the evolution on the science side or from the Bible standpoint? So those are things that are still being discussed today as to what should be taught in the classrooms and not. And the question for you at the end of your notes, and this is a very important question, I really want you to answer this question on your notes. Do you think that it will ever get solved? Do you think that this conversation about teaching evolution will ever get solved and will ever be settled? Like, will both sides eventually come to a agreed upon solution? I really want you to answer that in your notes for me, please. Here are the references from this presentation. And what to do now, what you have to do after this, make sure you did the guided notes along with the video, so your guided notes are done. Next, you will have to do your collaborative assignment. Remember, your collaborative assignment does not have to be with the person in the classroom. It can be with someone from your home. It could be with a friend down the street. It can be with anyone. I just need to see that you collaborated with someone. Then you have your independent assignment. Your independent assignment is, however, all on you. You are the only one who are to complete your independent assignment. Then you have your mastery check. There are 2 should do assignments. Remember, our should do assignments, you don't have to do them, but as stated, you should do them. They would really help you really understand more about the Scopes trial. So there are 2 should do assignments. One of your should do assignments is under your collaborative assignment, and then another should do assignment is under the independent assignment. I really encourage you to do both should do assignments. It will be extremely beneficial. So go forth and work.